The best interviews are the ones where you learn something you weren't expecting. This week, I sit down with the developers behind Gemini X, and we talk everything from boss development and creating bosses and the psychology around some of those bosses to creating that feeling of discovering secrets again for the first time. So if that's something that interests you, sit back, relax, and enjoy the show.
Hi, I'm Celia Schilling from Yacht Club Games.
Hey, this is James from Megacat Studios.
Hey folks, this is Matt, aka Stormageddon from Reignite and the Fun and Games Podcast.
This is Stephanie from the Boss Rush Podcast and the Boss Rush Network.
Hey, this is Mark and Keon from Bunte Avond.
Hey, this is Sebastian with the ProNerdReport.com and the Single Player Experience Podcast.
Hi, this is Chris.
Mike.
And Garrett from Daylight Basement Studio.
Hey, this is Baron J67 from Level 1 Gaming.
Hi, I'm Jacob McCourt from the Left Behind Game Club, Crossplay Conversations, and Video Game Trivia.
Hey, this is Todd Mitchell from Code Right Play.
Salutations, this is Mike Carroll from Stroll Art.
Hey, this is Jeff Moonen from Fun and Games Podcast.
What's good, y'all? This is Adam from Respawn Aimfire.
Hey, this is Patrick from the Backlog Odyssey.
Hey, this is Rune from Runic Codes.
Hi, this is Andrew from Spillane Bros.
Hi everyone, Jill Grote here from the Indie Informer.
Hello, this is the Crypt Master, and you're listening to Roger Richie. You're listening to Roger on the Gamerheads Podcast.
And welcome to another episode of the Gamerheads Podcast. My name is Roger. Along with me this week, I have two very special guests. I have Julian and Jason from Komi Games, the team behind the upcoming game Gemini X. Julian and Jason, thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule and meeting with me today.
Thanks for having us. Yeah, it's a pleasure.
Yeah. So before we get into the game, I'll let you each introduce yourselves and talk a little bit how you got into game development. So Julian, I'll start with you.
Sure. Yeah. So I'm Julian Spillane. I'm the CEO and founder of Komi Games. Been running Komi for 9 years now, but I've been in the games industry for 22 years.
Wow.
Count the gray hairs in my beard to figure that one out. I got into games because it's literally all I've ever wanted to do. I learned to program when I was 6 years old on a Commodore 64, and nice. I've been playing video games on hand-me-down systems. We weren't very well off, so I was always like, I got an Atari 2600 when everyone was getting their NES, but I was, just enamored with the medium. I fell in love, and like what truly crystallized me wanting to do this was the first time I got my hands on Mega Man 2. I was like, these are wizards and I want to be people who make this. And my parents were like, well, that's not a job. And I was like a petulant child. I was like, well, clearly someone gets paid to do this. So I'm going to figure out how. And the rest, as they say, is history. I mean, I started in, I did an internship at Electronic Arts. That was my first real foot in the door. And then just kind of bopped around between indie and AAA and mobile all throughout my career. I worked at the storied Canadian game studio Silicon Knights under Dennis Dyack for a while. A lot of stories to be had there. I've worked on large projects with Marvel. I've worked on the smallest party games. I've worked with children's properties. It's kind of been a wild ride. But that's why I started Komi, was because I just wanted to work on the games that I wanted to play. Throw it over to Jason.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm Jason Canam, the creative director at Komi. And much like Julian got my start a long time ago, just being very enamored with this medium. Didn't learn to code at a very young age, but taking the design side of things, playing games was one thing. Really, really loved it. But it was the first time that I saw games that included level editors and level builders. Dating back to the Commodore 64 and even some simple NES games like Battle City had a tile-based editor you could make maps and levels out of, and that's what I went into in the early 90s, doing Doom WADs, into Duke Nukem 3D maps with Build Engine. So I've always been kind of an editor kind of guy, taking it from the design standpoint. Level design is my trade, primarily. I got my start in the industry about 20 years ago. My first start was working with Capcom on mobile titles, so the old ports of Mega Man 2 and Street Fighter 2 that were running on old Motorola Razr flip phones and Nokias. That was my first job.
Wow.
And I've been fortunate to work in mobile, worked a little bit in the indie space, was fortunate enough to be part of an excellent team that worked on a game called Guacamelee, which was a Metroidvania title. Fantastic experience, pretty much life-changing. And beyond that, just working currently with Julian, like kind of in this console space and just working on everything large and small, and a big focus on games that we think are really awesome. And Gemini X is the culmination of that.
Yeah,
exactly.
awesome.
Don't forget Rush Marine. You gotta get your Mega Man cred through there.
Of course, yes. There is a completely exclusive, the only Mega Man game, official Mega Man game developed outside of Japan, which was Mega Man Rush Marine, which was a shmup on old phones. Yeah, never got released anywhere else. It's just on J2ME, Brew.
Wow. I will tell you, I wasn't aware of that game, so I will have to go check it out. Let's talk about the game though, Gemini X. I'm really excited about this. So tell me what's this game about?
Jason, it's all yours.
Certainly. So it started as being, obviously the inspiration's obvious, and that's how we intend it to be. Game design has languages, has shorthands, and that's the intention of using inspirations. Is we really wanted to leverage. There's no game like it that has that combination of movement, of level design, of character design. So we can do a shorthand. You can build a completely unique original game, which we'll be talking about, that it truly is on top of that. But it's nice to have that shortcut that you can let people know this is where you're starting off is. We hope to launch beyond that and really take you places and make it very unique. But initially, we have that little baseline. You can expect, from the trailer footage, the dash, the wall jumping, charge shot, those familiars are going to be there. There's going to be plenty of new stuff as well, but that's why we wanted to start with that. It's something I've always been very comfortable and a huge fan of. We love those games, and we thought that we could really build something from it. And the main ethos is that let's truly make it a fully interconnected living world Metroidvania. That's kind of what we wanted to be. That's really what we want to present.
And another thing, I know, some of the responses to the initial announcement, it was overwhelmingly positive, which warmed our hearts. But there are a few people going well, this is just Mega Man X. And it's yeah, but so I've been in the industry 22 years. 22 years ago was the last time Capcom released a Mega Man X. So my entire duration as a professional in the video game industry, there has not been a Mega Man X, and there doesn't really seem to be any signs of one ever appearing again. So at a certain point, you just got to take fate into your own hands and make it happen.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, I will say, yes, there might be some inspiration, but just looking at the game and the art and just some of the mechanics too is just so different. And then we'll get into that too. So one of the things that I really love about this game as well is the art. That's just the first thing that struck for me. Can you talk about the inspiration behind the visual style of the game?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of that credit has to go to Dave Lopez, our the architect of the visual aesthetic of this game. He's our lead concept artist. His official title is visual strategist because he kind of encompasses everything. He does key art, setting the tone, even down to rolling up his sleeves and doing asset work in 3D. Sometimes he's just one of those geniuses of all trades. And he got into this project, and so the game itself has a pretty long storied history within Komi, in that I brought Jason on in 2021. Is that when it was? 2021? 2022? Yeah, we were spooling up the idea to make this game then. And we found Dave through a friend of mine who, so I had a band in the nerd scene. We used to play MagFest, the music and gaming festival out in Baltimore, Maryland. And we had I have another friend in the band called Night of the Round, which is Final Fantasy set, death metal. It's fucking cool. And their bassist, Adam Payne, saw me just make a post on social media somewhere being does anyone know any illustrators who really know the Mega Man style inside and out? And he's I went to college with this guy, Dave Lopez, you should meet him. And we took off like a house on fire. He got the vision immediately. He understood it at the same level of granularity in his bones that Jason and I did. And so we brought Dave on to start the conceptualization of what this world would look like, and what, we didn't have the word Heretic yet. We didn't have Rook or any of the ideas, but we're let's just start with what are our Mavericks? And we had some brainstorming spreadsheet. Jason created the whole matrix of function and animal, descriptor animal. And Dave just kind of went ham, and we found some designs we loved and iterated from there. And he just brought this kind of colorful pop. He's got a really good sense of this, like, how do we translate that bright 2D pixel art and that beautiful, like, 90s comic, like, especially that, like, manga, mid 90s manga vibe, to 3D in a way that doesn't feel inauthentic. It doesn't lose that kind of vibrancy. And that's, like, gotta say that magic is Dave in a heartbeat, at the directional level. Like, obviously our team brought it to life, and there's so many other incredible people behind that, but like the genesis of that is just Dave.
Nice. Yeah, the art really pops. I mean, and when you said like that 90s anime style, I mean, you could see that come through in the art. It's just fantastic. I really love it.
Thank you.
Yeah. One of the things that stands out to me is the bosses, right? Like, I feel like that's an important aspect of this game. And I love the name Heretic as well, because like there's a little bit of a religious kind of tone to it as well, right? But spelled like tech, like robots, right? Like, I love that. So can you talk about maybe some of the challenges of making each one of those bosses feel distinct, and then what were some of your personal favorites as well?
Certainly. Yeah, they're key to almost everything. It's why, on the current materials we've distributed on the Steam page, they're front and center. The big group shot of them is important to us.
Yeah.
We've held back a little bit of information. We haven't revealed everything about all of them yet. We're going to be doing that in due time. We're excited to talk about them. But yeah, they've been like the core of this whole thing. And yeah, in addition to just thinking beyond of like, property, adjective / animal, which is where it absolutely started. But where it evolved is like, which are ones that can play off one another? Which are ones that can serve a purpose or a role, because their personalities were key. Like, another big inspiration, not from games, we've always said, has been Die Hard. It is about the Heretics being a group of robotic kind of terrorists who are fighting for a cause, who have attacked Gemini Station. And so thinking about like what kind of roles would they fulfill? It's less about just like, oh, these 8 animals seem pretty cool, let's shelf them in. It's like, no, do they serve a purpose on the team? Do you see how these could be a team? Like, well, this guy would be the obvious hacker. She would be the obvious stealth assassin, so to speak. And and they would play off one another. Like, do they fit a role that fits their team, which means they serve the story? And like, does that make it all? Because we think that'll make it all more cohesive, because we have said they aren't intended to just be bosses that sit in a room. They are actively carrying out a plot on there. We want to kind of make it feel like, you as the rookie officer, Rook, who is also a character we'll be talking more about, in the future throughout development, that, we want to make it feel like, there is an active team sabotaging, sieging this station, and you want to stop them. And so like their personalities are key to that.
Yeah, and I think it's been the process has been delightfully iterative, where it's like, okay, we had Dave come up with some initial sketches based on the names we thought were cool, and we went like, okay, these ones. But then as we got our plot outlined and we understood what the motivation of this group was, it's like, okay, well, this character is the clear leader. So if he's the leader, then like, which of these characters would slot into these roles, and how can we tailor their designs to fit those roles? And so Dave would go back and do an iteration on the character's visual, be like, well, okay, if they're in charge of the security, well, we should incorporate the station, like some kind of station security, like hacking aspects into them. Okay, cool. Well, that personality then would inform their relationship within these two. Like, who's the Starscream to the Megatron here? Where do we start getting character interplay, which is something that I think the X Games touched on very loosely towards the end of the series, but it's like you don't really get the dynamics of how the Mavericks ever got along within each other. Like maybe in the the Ariga manga and those kinds of things, you had that depiction, but now we've got the opportunity, modern game development and an interconnected world, where we can have vignettes that you overhear while crawling through a vent of 2 of the heretics arguing over strategy or a power struggle, perhaps, or something like that. Like, that emerges naturally and allows us to really push it forward.
Nice. I'm going to ask this question, and maybe it won't come off correctly, but I'll ask it, and you can ask if you want me to refine the question. But like when you're thinking through that, where the interconnectivity between the different bosses and the story and where it's going, can you talk maybe a little bit about like that process around like thinking through, okay, well, if this happens here, then what happens with this heretic over here, and what are they thinking, and how does this move the plot forward? Can you talk a little bit about that story narrative part of it as well?
Yes, certainly. So what it has meant and what we've discovered in this development, that's, I think, really fun as a designer and a level designer, first and foremost, is that it has pushed narrative directly in line and is synergizing with level design very, very well. That's been a neat little challenge. It's been great to kind of plan around that. So we are thinking about that, and like you outlined it pretty well, and that is the approach we're taking. How it finally coalesces will be we hope it to be very present and obvious in the final game, particularly with repeated playthroughs. But yeah, it's just meant that we can't take the approach of just build a level to play in, and what's the starting cutscene and what's maybe the post-boss cutscene. And we'll call it then. I've worked on mini games where that typically, and that's a common way of presenting narrative in a lot of games, is, a cutscene to set up a level, then you have a very clear delineated play segment, typically ending with a boss, and then you end with a cutscene. And this has been a little bit more of like, maybe something could be in the middle.
Yeah.
Maybe could be informed by where else you've been or who else you've seen. And so,
and maybe you'll see something, if you've done something over here, maybe you'll see something over here that you wouldn't have if you hadn't done this, and vice versa, right? Like,
yeah. And that, of course, the development balance is not letting that spiral endlessly out of control. We're finding the point where we're on the precipice and be like, let's pull back a bit, so it's not an endless spider web that turns into endless development. But we feel that we're very close, and we definitely have hit that stride where we think we know exactly what that is, but we're not over-promising, but we're also delivering on that kind of that expectation. We feel very, very happy about that.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think that's one thing that makes this game so unique compared to a lot of different platformers and Metroidvanias, in this fact that, and that's what intrigues me, is you're thinking through, if this happens, what does this mean, like this person's doing? Even though they may not be on the scene, what are they doing behind the scenes that the player may see later on, right? So I love that.
Yeah, and it's a lot of foreshadowing. Is like our narrative designer, Ian Flynn, who folks of y'all might know from the Sonic comics and Sonic games and many other things. He did the Archie Mega Man comics for a long time.
Really?
Ian, if you give him endless possibility, he will fill it up somehow. Like, that man will just write and write and write until his fingers bleed. So I think more for humanitarian purposes than anything else, we have to narrow our scope as we go.
Oh, I love that. One of the things that I did see on your press release, and I have a question around this, is the future, and I'm going to quote here: discover secret ways to progress and alter the fights against the heretics. Make the right moves, and you can force the bosses to go all out, and all out is all caps. Can you talk a little bit about what that means, and how does that mechanic change to the boss encounters?
Absolutely. I'd love to talk about this. This is my personal favorite thing. So inspired from old Mega Man games, I'll tell a little story of kind of where the idea came from.
Yeah.
So thinking back to the original Mega Man X, I like thinking about the Chill Penguin boss. He has one of the unique interactions he can do where a hook comes from the ceiling, he jumps up to it, pulls it, and summons the blizzard attack that comes in. And I consider it a failure if I don't knock him off that at least once. And I even tell myself I have to be ready for it every time. And it's skillful, and it doesn't happen every time. And I was thinking to myself while playing, like, what if this was upsetting? What if this was making him angry? And what if that then changed his boss pattern? That he then got more angry and had bigger attacks. So that's what that's inspired about. It's about how you fight the bosses, maybe bait out certain moves, maybe interrupt certain moves. And the whole idea is that there are secret conditions for every boss.
And they're not the same per boss. Yeah, they're different. Rooted in their personality and rooted in their environment.
Exactly. And so the idea is like, in addition to just so like, you can just shoot them and defeat them. You can even discover their weakness and defeat them. But maybe if you really know how to get under their skin, you can really, and then like their all out form, their all out attack is when you've kind of secretly pushed them beyond their limit. They're like, okay, now I'm really coming for you. And that is something that's going to play into how things can kind of change. And it really makes the boss fight much more observational, reactive. We want you to learn about these characters, understand what makes them tick, push those buttons, be like the John McClane that drives them insane.
I love that. I love that. And I'm going to ask this. So is part of understanding how to get under their skin, for a lack of a better term, is understanding their character and maybe understanding a little bit of the narrative behind that too, and like paying attention to that?
Absolutely. And it is in those events that can or cannot happen where you'll uncover that. And so that's why we really want to kind of encourage that nonlinear exploration. You might be on the path towards Heretic A, but you might want to go check in with B maybe, or see what's going on. And so always keeping that top of mind is kind of important. And then, it also then turns into something else. But it was really just about that kind of emergent behavior about I don't just want to beat a boss. I want to anger them as well. And I think there's opportunity there. And from prototyping and testing out, we're very happy with the results. We think there's something there that's really cool.
And we want to be very coy with it, in that we don't want to spoon feed it to the player. We don't want it to feel like a checklist of things they need to collect. We want someone to feel legitimately accomplished when they do it. I mean, knowing full well that a week after the game's release, someone will have dumped all the information on how to do this on some game fact somewhere. But the idea, I miss the era of organic discovery, of that feeling of joy when you find something that clearly the developers wanted you to search for. There are narrative and progression implications to these, without revealing too much. But the idea of you will be rewarded as a player for doing this, and for discovering that. So it's incentive to play the game again and really, really engage with the world and engage with the systems we've built.
That's awesome. And I will say this, that's one of the reasons I was hesitant to ask that question, because of what you just said, Julian, is I also love discovering things on my own. And it feels like, I'm of your age, right? I grew up playing Atari 2600. Actually, my first system was a Pong machine. So
nice.
So we grew up playing games where there was no internet, and you discovered things on your own, and then you would tell your friends at school, did you see this? And it was fun. It was that was the thing about it. So I was a little hesitant to ask that question, just because I don't want to spoil anything for anybody, but I also wanted to ask as a journalist. I'm I need to know more about that as well, right? So.
Well, we also live in the world of having to walk the fine line between what's your value prop, what's your unique selling point, and we understand that we've got to hint that there's something more there, but what that is, it's up to you to find out.
I love that. The other thing I wanted to touch on with both of you is the music, because the music is really fantastic as well. Can you talk about that collaboration between the music and the game design teams, and how did those two elements influence each other during development?
Oh, so music is, for both Jason and myself and Ori, our audio director, music is probably one of the biggest pillars for video games in general, but also specifically for Mega Man as a franchise and for those ilk of games, right? That whole Alf Lyra era of Capcom is just so entrenched in us. So this soundtrack is going to be a pride and joy. I think, maybe you might love the game, maybe you might not, but we want to make sure you fucking love the soundtrack. So the composer that you've heard so far is Sean Bilo. He's a local Toronto composer, but he's doing incredible stuff. Penny's Big Breakaway for Evening Star Games. He did Donut Dodo was his first big success. He just came off of being the secondary composer on Densha Attack that just came out.
Nice.
He's a phenomenal composer, great dude. We're also working with T. Lopes, who we worked with on Mighty Fight Federation, and we worked with on our most recent project with Sega. T is a near and dear friend. He also gets it. But we're also aiming crazy high. So in the past, we worked with Manami Matsumae on the composer of Mega Man 1, on Mighty Fight Federation. Obviously, we love working with Japanese composers. We have a very close relationship with a lot of Japanese publishers. So it's our intent to bring in as many legacy Mega Man composers as we can work with. We're already in conversations with some, which is very exciting. And if we can nail those down, that would be excellent. And we just want to make this the biggest, love letter that we possibly can and make it the best banging soundtrack we can. We've also got, we want to work with community fan musicians as well, folks who are, huge now, but also we're in the same spot of being like making VGM music. Like Mega Ran is a good friend of ours. The Megas, the Proto Men, these are folks we want to collaborate with and try and make this love letter soundtrack. So yeah, it's rooted very firmly in an extreme passion for video game music. From a stylistic direction standpoint, however, we're really leading into that X4 era, that late 90s Mega Man, because I do find that rock, like the rock sound of X1 through 3 are inimitable and awesome, right? Like X1 is a perfect soundtrack, but there is something, like, I would say, incongruent with the visual aesthetic we're going with that, like, full, if the whole soundtrack was just full rock guitar, I think it just wouldn't be as wouldn't flow as well than if we pulled bits and pieces from the different eras. So yeah.
Nice.
And in terms of like the collaboration, exactly like Julian alluded to, our audio director Ori, he's the audio director, but then as well he works very closely with me on the design side as well. So we have a very skilled professional who's got 1 foot in audio, 1 foot in design, works extremely closely with myself, and so audio and design are very, very linked. We have desks next to one another in the office every day. So like audio is key to the experience. And I've always found that kind of the nice feedback loop of design informing audio, coming back and informing design. So much of what I've worked on in my career has been like, you build out an idea, like, a level until you can flesh out enough of, here's what it is. Here's what you get an idea. Hear a first pass audio track. I'm going to change the level a little bit more. Like what I'm hearing in it means this level needs more jumping, actually, or it needs a more emphasis on combat. So I'm going to adjust the level a little bit. And then a second pass of the audio will typically reinforce that. And then together they both mold one another. And that's just the way I've always found it the most fruitful to work with. And that's always been very successful. And this is no different. So they're very hand in hand, and it works very well for us. And like I said, I love working that way.
Nice. I love that. I know that the game is still in production, but when the game releases, like what experiences do you hope people walk away with after they're playing the Gemini X?
For me, it comes back to the characters. I really want people to walk away going like, man, that was awesome. The way it resolved. And even though everything's all said and done, I really love that heretic. Mm-hmm. That's awesome. And just like, what happened in the game, but it really is. I really want everyone to very easily be able to pick out their favorite character because they're so distinct, strong personalities, and not just from the villains. There's an entire hero faction that we're going to be talking about. To counter the heretics, there is, Rook will have backup, will have allies, and on all sides of the spectrum, we want everyone to be able to pick out a favorite character. We, like I said, not only because typically ask anybody, they'll have a favorite. We want it to be an obvious decision on their part because they're like, no, that one stood out so much to me, but yet someone else, it'll be that one is the one that stood out to me. It is all about the characters. They're first and foremost for me. And that's really what I want to have happen, is just someone who enjoyed it, but then someone who can then say, this is why I loved that character, and totally open to all of the theory crafting. If people are inventing their own backstories beyond what we give them, I think that character's like that for this reason, is like, that'd be awesome. All awesomely supportive of that kind of engagement. And just, I want people to want to love them.
If we don't get fan fiction off the back of this, what are we doing here? Right? Like fan art, fan fiction, fan music. Like I want someone to play the game and come off and go, oh, these guys got it. This is they understand it because they had the same experiences as I did. And I really like, we were bringing new things to the table, but we want to evoke the feeling. Like, I think a driving principle behind the studio and behind like the ethos of the games we make is we want to evoke the feeling of what it was like to play a game when we were younger, not to like go back to the same tropes and the same exact mechanics and do it identically, but that feeling of joy that you got, that feeling of elation when you picked up, like the first time I played, like Mega Man X4 stands out so heavily in my mind because I loved the classic series and I loved the X series, but like the transition to 32-bit, because I know X3 was on the Saturn, but it's not a 32-bit game. It lives over here in 16-bit land. That transition to 32-bit and the sights, the sounds, the pixel art, that new pixel density, that like the vibrancy, the feel, it just hit me like this, like a lightning bolt through my chest. And I remember it so vividly. And like, if I can evoke that feeling in somebody playing Gemini, then we've succeeded. That's it. Like, yeah, would I love it to sell millions of copies? Absolutely. That's that's great. Our threshold for success, though, is thankfully a lot smaller than that. We want to be realistic about the market we can reach. But really, for us, it's about making something that evokes that feeling while letting us keep the lights on and keep doing it.
Of course. Yeah, I love that. Where can people follow the progress of the game?
We're on every socials under Gemini X game. So that's going to be the first stop for like big updates, micro content and community building stuff. We have a Discord available. You can find it through all of our social links. It's currently less active as we're like in really hammering out our core systems. But like as content starts coming online, we're going to drip feed some teasers through Discord that'll then end up on socials. But yeah, really we're available on every platform that people use for social media. Jason and I are both a little Luddites in that regard, in terms of social media, but we have the younger folks on our team are really good at that. So,
well, I know how that is myself.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, both of you, for joining me. I'm going to put the links for all that into the show notes as well. So you can follow that. I'll put the link out to the Steam page too, so you can go wishlist this as well. Thank you so much, both of you, for joining me. This was a really fun chat, and I am really, really looking forward to the game.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Roger. It's been a wonderful chatting with you. And yeah, we'll keep you up to date on the progress of the game. And hopefully when we launch, we'll come back for another time to talk about how we did. You can evaluate us to give us our scorecard.
There we go.
Awesome.
Listeners, thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule. And we'll see you next week. Everyone stay safe and game on. Bye.
Perfect. Ciao.